The damage that was accumulated. When you're in there, you're not really focusing on their face and how much damage has actually accumulated. But, towards the end, I remember seeing how swelled up his eyes were. And yeah, that big knee definitely took the spirit, that he had left. He's so skilled. It's just he's going to have a very big challenge, mentally and emotionally when it comes to, coming back and performing. But his skill level is second to none when it comes to his ability to, pick his shots. And, he's still one of the best. He just needs to understand that this is a crazy game. Anything can happen. And you got to go in there with a mentality like that.
That snapshot of Ilia Topuria struggling to see past the grotesque swelling overtaking his face stands as perhaps the most disturbing visual in recent UFC memory. His reputation had been spotless, crushing title holders and cultivating an almost mythical presence of dominance, yet everything collapsed when he met Justin Gaethje. A fight that appeared to be another violent battle suddenly sparked urgent conversations about injury severity and whether officials should have intervened sooner. People in his inner circle are now breaking their silence. His brother Aleksandre, Dana White, medical personnel, and conditioning coach Jesus Gallo have all shared revealing perspectives on what truly transpired and how dangerous the aftermath became.
Yeah, Ilia's in the hospital. He's busted up. I'm not a doctor, but his eye looked like he probably has broken orbital. I don't know that's not a fact, but I'm just assuming. And my plans for him are to go home and rest and recover and take his time. And tonight was a rough night for him. I just want to make sure he's healthy and good, and not even thinking about him fighting again. Just want him to go home and relax, rest, and heal.
Dana White's immediate reactions following the bout sent an unmistakable message. The conversation had shifted entirely away from championship defenses or potential do-overs toward Topuria's medical condition. The punishment he endured raised alarms that couldn't be dismissed. The organization's priority became singular and absolute. Confirmation that Topuria had recovered completely before any talk of stepping back into competition.
Topuria, in previous fights, you could tell he always had his family, his wife, his kids. I just watched a documentary that came out on Ilia Topuria, and he was just talking about how much he loved his girl, and that could have been his fault that they got a divorce. I wonder how much that had to do with everything.
It had everything to do with everything. It's all connected.
Ilia Topuria is the most decorated fighter in the UFC. He would have if not for paperwork. Ilia Topuria.
Trevor Whitman's assessment pointed towards psychological factors rather than purely physical ones. He argued Gaethje arrived prepared for absolute chaos, while Topuria anticipated another showcase of superiority. That fundamental mismatch in expectations dictated how everything unfolded. Though Whitman suggested this crushing setback might eventually forge an even more formidable version of the fighter who learns from devastating loss.
The body shot?
Topuria himself later acknowledged a critical error in judgment when the action hit the canvas.
I think that was a big mistake on Ilia's part, going to the ground. Because Justin was really
He was hurt very bad.
He was hurt. And Justin's just a durable guy. He's very smart in situations. He knows when to take breaks. There's times in the fight, like the third and the fourth round, where I was like, stop taking breaks here. You gotta find it.
The violence inside the cage tells only a fraction of what really happened. External pressures and internal turmoil can compromise any competitor's performance, and the instant Gaethje seized control, even someone as seemingly indestructible as Topuria appeared suddenly fragile.
He might never be the same fighter. He's undefeated. He got beaten badly. He pushed Justin Gaethje. He let his emotions get in the way a little bit. However, when you lose a fight like that, you've been beaten. Like Prince Nazim Hamed. I mean, he was destroying everyone, and he lost one fight. He was never the same again, right?
Yeah.
Now you can be beaten. There's that doubt in that. Who knows? Maybe he comes back and he's a better version of himself.
Michael Bisping reflected on how a single devastating loss reshapes a fighter permanently. MMA history repeatedly shows unbeatable champions appearing superhuman until defeat introduces an unfamiliar psychological element they've never encountered. That doesn't automatically mean Topuria cannot rebuild himself, as countless legends have following initial destruction. Something irreversible has changed regardless. Future opponents now possess evidence he can be damaged, rattled, and dragged into genuine survival mode during competition.
Octagon. think Ilia's gonna come back better than ever. He's young still. He was going through some personal stuff. I think he's gonna come back. I mean, Justin fucking humbled him for sure.
Yeah. I also think though, like, he's human now. So anyone who fights him now, they're like, they know that's in him, that they know it's a possibility. And a big thing, even with you and like Ilia and these guys, before the losses, they were almost scared in there. Like there's this weird aura, like this scary aura, like he's gonna f everyone up. Now that it got exposed a little bit, I think he's not gonna come back as just dominating.
Broken.
I was a little bit surprised. Also, I know that Gaethje is a hell of a fighter. If I were him, what else does he want to accomplish? He did it all.
What do you think is next for Ilia?
Ilia is an unbelievable fighter. It's sometimes just not your night. If he fights again, we will probably regain the title. He put too much energy, tried to finish Justin, and when he didn't get it,
I think that really screwed him up. He was expecting to go in there and do what he normally does.
Not everyone interprets this defeat as evidence of Topuria's decline. Sean O'Malley, alongside other professionals, believe this experience could reconstruct him into something far more lethal. Their perspective suggests every truly great champion eventually confronts a night when perceived invincibility evaporates and harsh reality intrudes. The athletes who achieve legendary status extract the deepest lessons from such moments. O'Malley concedes the mystique has transformed fundamentally. Opponents no longer perceive an untouchable phenomenon, but rather a competitor who bleeds and struggles when pressed relentlessly. That mental advantage vanished. Meanwhile, as speculation intensified, discussions turned toward a far graver concern regarding whether Topuria had lost his sight entirely.
Sequence started after the third round. Topuria got absolutely peppered, multiple shots to the right eye, and we could hear the translation while Topuria was on his stool, with his team calling for the doctor, saying that he could not see out of his right eye. If you can't see out of your eye, it's pretty simple. The doctor's gonna come in, they're going to evaluate you, and if you're telling them that they can't see, they are going to, and they should appropriately, stop the fight. We see the ringside physician come in, he does a quick part of his assessment, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and then afterwards he basically looks over to Mark Goddard and shakes his head and says no. Based on that doctor's initial assessment, Topuria cannot see. He is not safe to continue, and the doctor tells Mark Goddard, no, he can't see. Fight should be off. Looks like this other gentleman who then steps in is one of the other ringside physicians that was there.
When additional footage from Cage's side surfaced, debates surrounding Topuria's medical state intensified dramatically. Dr. Brian Sutterer, a board-certified non-operative sports medicine physician with substantial online following, emphasized that the instant Topuria informed his corner about complete vision loss in his right eye, the situation escalated into emergency territory. In fighting, sight deprivation transcends ordinary injury since it eliminates defensive capability entirely. Medical protocol dictated only one acceptable response: immediate stoppage. What unfolded next generated massive controversy following UFC 300.
He's doing good. He's doing good, you know. Tough kid, obviously. You know, after the first round, his eye was bothering him. You could see that he got hit. And at one point he like started covering his eye like this and was kind of, you know, messing with it. And then, you know, Justin just kept busting.
Topuria is going to need time to recover mentally, emotionally, and physically. He's never lost before. This is gonna take some to overcome. One of the things that was Topuria's greatest weapons, greatest strengths, greatest traits, besides his overall ability and technically be sound, and you know, he was a full package. He really was. Talent-wise, technique, everything. But one of the things foremost that leads the way for all those things to mean something is he has supreme confidence.
Once scrutiny of the physician's judgment peaked, focus pivoted toward Topuria's rehabilitation process. Dana White disclosed the eye trauma originated in round 1 and progressively deteriorated throughout subsequent exchanges. Teddy Atlas argued the visible injuries represented merely one dimension of the challenge. Topuria experienced something unprecedented in his professional journey, being forced to survive rather than dominate. Atlas believes such defining experiences either shatter a champion's self-belief permanently or become transformative education that produces superior fighters.
There to then move the eyeball, which could be from a multitude of different reasons. But clearly here he is not able to track, says no, fight needs to be off. When he goes back and does this again, like, I think this is probably just somewhat like, okay, give me the answer that we all want to hear. It doesn't even look like he really moves his finger the second time through when Goddard goes back in. And I think Goddard was just stepping in to say, no, I think the fight should continue. But it clearly looked like a situation where he was overruling what the doctor was recommending. And that is definitely a concern. I think you have to be very careful. And part of the reason why I don't want to personally cover combat sports in person, like ringside as a physician, is because like that balance of you're there to keep the fighter safe, but yet the fighter is engaging in something that is inherently dangerous, where you know they're trying to essentially hurt each other, is a really difficult mix of kind of your obligation to the wellness of that individual. Because this doctor needs to know that, of course, Gaethje is going to try to keep targeting the eye. And so that balance of like, what is safe to continue going through a combat sport versus like the letter of the law with what you're...
Arguments persisted well beyond the final bell. Countless fans raised identical concerns. Should officials have intervened earlier? Dr. Sutterer suggested available video evidence indicated the cage physician harbored legitimate worries about whether Topuria could safely proceed. Once visual function becomes questionable, every subsequent blow multiplies danger exponentially, particularly when opponents recognize exactly which target to attack repeatedly. Combat sports present agonizing responsibilities. Medical staff exist to safeguard athletes. Competitors demand maximum opportunity to continue. Referees must weigh competing interests instantaneously. Whether the ultimate decision proved correct remains debatable. What became undeniable was Topuria's right eye had become the fight's entire focal point.
It's seeing a little bit the future now. We have for you, obviously, your next fight as a fighter coming up, but we also, before we will talk about that, you also have your brother who will fight in the White House. You as a head coach against Gaethje.
Yes.
What do we think about this? It's not actually a super fight. I need to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. I wanted to see like something, I don't know, Islam or somebody like have like this obvious super fight. What do you think of?
So first of all, what I want to say that I think we have to put some more respect to Justin Gaethje. Yeah, first of all, because he's a dangerous guy. You cannot look at him like, oh, for sure, I believe in my brother, even if you ask me how the fight gonna end. I think everybody know the answer, what I will say. Because not just because he's my brother, because that the styles make the fight. And the style Justin Gaethje have, Ilia is El Matador for that style, for every style, but especially for people who want to fight. He's El Matador, yes. So, but I never ever underestimate Justin Gaethje. So, yeah, in this case, I'm speaking about Justin Gaethje, but the reality is that I don't underestimate anybody. Anybody. Even if I fight with somebody like 2 categories less, 3 categories less, you don't underestimate anybody because he have 2 hands, 2 legs like you know. So. Yes, and in that level...
Well before any actual violence commenced, Aleksandre Topuria discussed the matchup with considerably more reservation than public sentiment reflected. Despite total faith in his sibling, he consistently refused to characterize Justin Gaethje as merely another obstacle. He stressed something that retrospectively seems remarkably prescient. Seasoned experience commands respect regardless of natural talent. Facing someone possessing Gaethje's durability, finishing power, and erratic unpredictability always carries substantial risk. The cautionary observations Aleksandre shared beforehand now resonate almost eerily given everything that subsequently materialized.
For this, I did some research, and I want to know, like, if you would fight your brother professionally.
No, don't give me this. Don't give me this question.
No.
He will win 100%.
Oh, you think so?
Yes, he will win 100%.
So that's it. That's your final concern. You don't need 2 seconds, no time.
But brothers never fight. I always say. Actually, behind the cameras, I fight with him whole my life. Whole my life. But in front of camera, in front of people, my brother is best of the best.
Brotherhood never diminished Aleksandre's conviction. While acknowledging Justin's legitimate threats, his certainty about Ilia remained unshaken. That steadfast faith wasn't rooted in sentiment, but rather emerged from lifelong training partnerships, daily pressure, and intimate knowledge of his brother's capabilities when healthy. Sometimes conviction alone proves insufficient. Once competition begins, predictions dissolve the instant the door locks. This particular night delivered brutality exceeding anyone's imagination.
Now, when we go back to our biodigital anatomy tool, remember there are multiple injuries that could have occurred here, and really when we're talking about Topuria's absence, depends on what those are. This could be as simple as a substantial amount of soft tissue swelling that built up around the skin in the soft tissue outside of the eye and simply just closed off light from passing through. Everything might be completely fine. Hopefully everything is completely fine in terms of the orbital socket. There was a little part at the end of the fight where it almost looked like a bone was maybe kind of protruding a little bit on that right side, and so there certainly could be an orbital fracture. Those typically don't require surgery, but they can because of swelling, because of the fracture. They can kind of entrap these muscles that are controlling the eye, specifically the ones that are going to put the eyes upward. And so it's very important when we're checking the eyes to follow upwards to see if there's any trapping of that inferior rectus muscle. And so orbital socket fracture, definitely a concern. Hopefully nothing more serious like an orbital fracture, an orbital injury itself to like the actual meat of the eyeball. Hopefully nothing like a retinal detachment in the back of the eye. And you also hope, of course, that nothing happened in that fourth round that made any of this worse, that could potentially.
Medical professionals reviewing available footage raised concerns about potential orbital fracture. Significant swelling can temporarily eliminate vision, while actual fractures threaten eye mobility and create possibilities for permanent visual complications. Fortunately, subsequent examinations reportedly revealed no displaced breaks requiring surgical intervention. The contusions and inflammation appeared severe, but outcomes could have proven catastrophically worse. Specialists unanimously agreed premature return to training would constitute serious mistake and full recovery demanded patience alongside methodical rehabilitation.
Like Ilia's body, deal with his weight and don't get injured. I cannot give him advantage. If I give him advantage, yeah, it's gonna be easy work for him. So no, I want to put him pressure, give him hard work. Morten stay with him physically, which I was, but I cannot tell you which was the most competitive part, because with him everything is competitive. I cannot choose like striking, wrestling, grappling, because everywhere it's like it's crazy.
I think one of the coolest videos was the video that went viral was you showing Ilia the way that he was going to finish Max Holloway. Do you have any sort of like breakdown or things that you saw with Justin Gaethje as well? Obviously, you can't give too much away, but over time, is there going to be another video if the knockout happens this weekend where you're showing Ilia exactly how to do it?
I have to say that I don't know how it works with another brothers, but like I say, me and him, we are not just brothers, we are good friends. So it's very important to have, because sometimes for somebody, brother is something, family, and just, okay, when we sit on the table and the family, we speak about it. No, we are not that type of brothers. We are brothers, but at the same time, we are best friends. And
beyond public spotlight and championship prestige, Aleksandre Topuria described a connection with Ilia transcending ordinary family ties. He characterized Ilia as brother, closest companion, constant training partner, and the individual who has challenged him since youth. Every sparring exchange, grappling sequence, and drill receives treatment as authentic combat, creating the unforgiving environment that forged El Matador. Aleksandre also possesses unique perspective, recognizing both Ilia's capabilities and limitations with clarity. Their relationship thrives on intensity, brutal honesty, and perpetual evolution. This mentality now faces testing through professional devastation for the first time.
Todas las recuperaciones son diferentes, todos los cuerpos reaccionan diferentes, pero físicamente, por lo que yo ya he visto ya del día al día, ya parece otra persona completamente. Obviamente que todavía se sienten las molestias y cosas así, pero tal parece que no estaba en ninguna pelea, de verdad. Se le ha ido toda la hinchazón de la cara, se le ha bajado todo tipo de hematoma que tenía. Obviamente tiene molestias todavía y sensibilidad alrededor del rostro de la cara, pero a la vista de un ojo se ve una persona ya muy recuperada, y no ha pasado ni una semana casi, una semana y 2 días.
Es decir, eso naturalmente y de forma normal, esos huesos van a soldar Gracias a Dios no hace falta cirugía. Esos huesos supuestamente se van a ir pegando poco a poco.
Sí, lo que el doctor nos comunicó fue que entre 6 a 8 semanas esto debe soldar de la forma adecuada, sobre todo porque no hubo un displacement fracture, no hubo
desplazamiento.
No hubo desplazamiento orbital de hueso, entonces esto va a sanar solo entre 6 y 8 semanas. 6 a 8 semanas para que esto sane y suelde, ya después de ahí a que pueda empezar a luchar, a que pueda empezar a hacer, va a tomar un tiempecito para que esto de verdad se solidifique ahí, y yo creo que eso por lo menos estamos hablando de fácil 2 a 3 meses. ¿Quién sabe? Vamos a ver. O por lo menos empezar lo que es las conversaciones para una revancha a principios de año, ¿sí?
Days after widespread concern regarding Topuria's facial trauma and vision swept through MMA communities, considerably more positive information emerged from his training camp. Physical conditioning coach Jesus Gallo, who maintained close involvement throughout recovery, provided the update. According to Gallo, progress during merely the initial week proved remarkable. The shocking post-fight swelling had begun subsiding substantially, and most discoloration faded noticeably. Despite residual discomfort, Ilia no longer resembled someone fresh from one of his career's most punishing encounters. Perhaps most significantly, physicians reportedly confirmed the orbital structures would mend naturally, without surgical requirement, since no major displacement occurred. The trainer clarified recovery remains nascent. Before resuming wrestling, sparring, and elite preparation, Ilia requires multiple months of monitored rehabilitation and cautious reconstruction.
But not the way that the fight played out from the start. Gaethje was able to dictate the pace, because the first round he won, and the first round is where he actually hurt his right eye. He managed to land a real good left hook, good jab, some fakes that led into uppercuts. He faked the takedown, came with the uppercut. Like, Gaethje looked fast, sharp, he used his length. I think Ilia, early on, he just walked straight forward. Ilia walked him down, didn't do no feints, just straight walked at him. And he ate a lot of jabs right in the beginning. If people watch that first round, that first minute, you're gonna see a lot of mistakes that Ilia just made. He just like walked right through him. I don't think he respected him too much, you know. He just came right at him, and he paid the price. He got hit with some jabs there, but he managed to find a way in the second round to drop Gaethje, made some adjustments, picked up the speed, because even though he wasn't being as defensive as he usually is, even though Ilia wasn't using as many fakes and setups and stuff as he usually does, he still had the speed and power advantage, and you could see it every time he lands. It was devastating. His speed was notches above, but I just feel like he didn't do enough of what he usually does. He feints a little bit more, moves a little bit more. He kind of just bull rushed Gaethje, and Gaethje got out some great shots, and then he just never stopped changing it up on him. He was throwing high kicks, you know, he was shooting to a clinch, to a collar tie, to then, you know, throwing shots. He was fighting in the clinch. And then, you know, it just really started to piece well together. Wow, props to Gaethje. The third round was insane. Gaethje won that one. The fourth round was insane. I mean, I don't even know how Ilia got out of there.
As dialogue transitioned from medical status toward technical analysis, Jorge Masvidal identified something fundamentally tactical. His interpretation suggested Gaethje didn't merely outlast Topuria, but forced him into fighting completely differently than audiences had grown accustomed to witnessing. From opening moments, Gaethje established his jab, incorporated feints, attacked varied levels, pressured from clinch positions, and continuously presented fresh problems demanding solutions. Masvidal acknowledged Topuria made strategic adjustments throughout, even scoring knockdowns and displaying explosive power that earned his title. Against opposition constantly evolving its approach, every error compounded increasingly. Rather than dictating pace as customary, Ilia found himself responding. And facing someone as battle-tested as Gaethje, momentum began shifting precisely there.
To apologize, because I don't usually make picks, and I was quite confident in my pick. I thought Ilia Topuria was going to win. Justin Gaethje won that fight fair and square. It appears as though Ilia's corner called off the fight going into the 5th round, and it looked like going into the 4th round the doctor was going to call it off. In fact, it seems as though he did actually call it off at one point. He shook his head, he said Ilia couldn't see, and then Mark Goddard almost like convinced him to keep it going. It was a weird thing. They gave him more time. a little bit odd, but in the end, the right man won. Justin Gaethje looked a lot bigger at 155 than Ilia. Justin Gaethje could take a punch in the first round when Ilia was hitting him like a Mack truck. Gaethje was taking the shots. No one takes those shots from Ilia. And Ilia was wearing some damage, and all of a sudden, you know, he's bleeding, and all of a sudden he's getting rocked, and all of a sudden he's cut, and all of a sudden he's, you know, swelling, and all of a sudden he can't see. And we've never seen him compromised like that before. We've never seen him in trouble, struggling like that before. And so in the end, you know, I'd said a million times, why would you put this unbelievable athlete who doesn't hail from America against an American who's likely going to lose? I'm going to be honest, I'm eating crow right now. Why would you put him in the main event of the White House card? And in the end, it turns out they knew what they were doing, because the American closes out the show. Unbelievable.
Even longtime analysts admitted surprise at how events unfolded. Ariel Helwani openly confessed predicting Topuria victory, amplifying the shock factor. Beyond the upset itself, one element stood above everything. Audiences witnessed Topuria navigating genuine adversity for the first time. He absorbed cuts, endured swelling, visibly struggled, and according to multiple cage-side accounts, experienced moments when his vision became seriously compromised. Despite everything, he continued pressing forward. That determination may not have altered final results, but reminded everyone why fighters like Topuria command such respect. Sometimes greatness isn't measured through dominant performances, but revealed through responses when circumstances deteriorate completely. The Justin Gaethje defeat didn't erase Topuria's accomplishments before UFC 300. It simply presented what every all-time great eventually confronts: setback. History proves some champions never fully recover from such losses. Others return sharper, wiser, and more complete than previously. Encouraging medical reports suggest physical recovery progresses positively. His team remains optimistic, swelling continues improving, and the comeback has already begun. Now arrives what no physician can quantify: confidence, adjustments, lessons extracted from experiencing career-first defeat. One element seems nearly certain. This doesn't conclude Topuria's narrative. Perhaps it initiates the most crucial chapter yet, because in mixed martial arts, legends aren't remembered exclusively for victories. They're remembered for actions following public defeat. When Topuria eventually returns later this year, the entire MMA world will watch intently, not merely to see whether he can win again, but to discover which version of El Matador emerges from that cage door.